What I was going to talk about, I am still shiny for some reason. I went over with the brush, but who knows? I don't know. Maybe it's the lights. Um, and it is kind of gray outside, so maybe that has a lot to do with it. Maybe I don't know. Um, what I what I was going to talk about was tone, your tone in writing, and I don't know if that's really the word that if the word I'm using is what I mean by tone, but here's what I mean. So take, for instance, the phrase, what time is it? Okay. Now, simple phrase, what time is it? But in what content? How would you differentiate between how someone would say, what time is it, if they were waiting to be married? You know, if they're a bride and they're in the back and they're, all in their gown, and the show's going to start in a couple minutes, and they ask, what time is it? Different from, uh suppose someone that that you've wanted so long, you just love this person, like this person, really like this person, you finally get a chance to sleep with them, but it's on a weeknight, and you wake up and go, what time is it? Because you have to get up and go to work, and you want to know if you have time enough to make love again before you have to get up and get to work. In contrast to, um, you're waiting for a child to come home from school, and they're late coming home, and you ask what time it is. Also, another example would be, suppose you're being a person is being executed at midnight, and they know it's 11:45, and they ask what time it is. You have to feel those differences. You have to, and not always, like I always say about show don't tell. There's a different, even though they're exactly the same words, what time is it? They have a different meaning, and they come from a different place in the person, and sometimes it's happy and sometimes it's sad. Also, come here, you know, like I say, come here to my cat, for him, to rub him and pat him and he'll come. Or come here if you're a child's about to get a spanking. Or come here if you want to hug somebody, give them a hug, and give them some some inspiration, or some attention and some affection. There's a difference. Also, I wrote down, I'm late. I'm late can be a very loaded, uh, a phrase. I'm late. And the ladies out there know which I'm late I'm talking about. Also, I'm late, you have to leave to go do something, important you want to do, or I'm late for an interview, something that would really stress you out, or I'm late, for work, or I'm late for your first day of work, or whatever. So you have to keep in mind when you're writing that sometimes even the most innocent or common phrases, that you have to write them a certain way. You have to lead up to them a certain way, and even the most common, phrases and attitudes are things that you have to, change and do in a different way. Let's see what else I wrote. But see, what happens is I write things down, and then I don't, as I think of things, and then when I get get ready to, to tape them, I can't remember what I meant. But I'll speak again on reveals. Um, the different kinds of reveals in Unspoken, in the short story, the medieval short story, Unspoken. The reveal isn't that the man, like most, like I like the idea of mystery. I like a person to be mysterious. To my characters, my female characters, to have there's a little mystery, about the men, the heroes in my stories, in my books. But like I said, in the second book, the same kind of reveal in the first book wasn't possible. It wasn't feasible at all, because it would have been impossible for him to fool her very long. It was easy for him to fool her before the war, but it would have been absolutely impossible for him to fool her afterwards. Because, like I said, you'd be shot running around without your uniform on. But actually, in the first draft of it, when she meets him the first time, she he's in fencing clothes. No. So she doesn't she when she meets him, he's in fencing clothes, and so she really doesn't know. She knows he must, from his, she knows he must be German, but she doesn't quite get a she didn't know exactly who he is. She figures he's just a, probably just a minor officer, or not, because his men say yes sir, and they don't say his rank, and they just, they scatter. And then I had the scene that she's in her dressing room, because, like I said, my heroine in the second book is a entertainer. And there's a scene I really like when she hears him coming in, like someone comes in behind her, and she turns around and she looks, and from the feet all the way up, she glances all the way up, and that's when she sees the uniform, and that's when she's like, oh, uh-oh, So um I and I started it kind of the classic. They really don't like each other. All they really do is bicker, but you still get the idea that they are in love. They're falling in love. They just don't want to say it. They just don't want to, you know, um, put themselves in a vulnerable position. But the reader knows what's going on, and I might develop that. I don't know. I think I think where I'm going with the second book now is pretty much the way I'm going to go with it. Um, with them having, with them writing each other, and and falling in love through writing. And what I wanted to talk to, oh, and going back to it, the reveal in Unspoken, it's not that she doesn't know who this man is. He's an enemy of her, and and the Robin Hood-esque characters that I have. Running in and out, bouncing in and out. And remember, I told you that the heroine, she's my only virgin heroine, and she, because she's raised in the Abbey. And what happens is, she goes, because she's a healer. She goes. This man brings, his son, which he says he's his nephew, but the reveal is that the little boy is actually his son, to the Abbey, because that's pretty much there was no hospital in terms of what we think of as hospitals. If you were wealthy, you either had a physician come to you, or there was a physician in the castle, or something like that. Or the best place to find a smart person, a person, a knowledgeable person like that, would be the Abbey. So of course he brings the child to the Abbey. There are physicians there, but they want to basically bleed him, which was, I don't know, the theory was that poison was in your blood. So if you bled the person, the poison would come out, which would actually just weaken the person and they die. So anyway, um, she um, goes and cares for the little boy, ends up, and the little boy is fine. And the here's her enemy sitting in a chair, like not, 5 feet away from her. The man she's run from, that all the villagers are afraid of, this awful, person. And the reveal is that she looks at him and she thinks, my gosh, he's 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 beautiful. She's never looked at him before. And she's seeing a different side of him, because he's very worried about the little boy. And he's very and in the end, he really does, he tells her after they sleep together that he's really his son, but he doesn't want to know. So it's a different kind of a reveal because she realizes, oh my gosh, he's beautiful. I've been terrified of this man, and he really is beautiful. She looks at him, and he's kind of sleeping, and because he's sitting there worried about the child. So he's sitting by the child's bed, and he's sleeping, and she looks at him, and I kind of think that's when she falls in love with him, when she actually um stares at him and realizes, wow, I've never looked at him before. He's really gorgeous, and he gives her he didn't bring any money with him. He didn't bring any money with him. And he in lieu of payment, you know, what he does is he takes a gold chain off his neck, and he has a gold chain on his neck, and he takes it off and he puts it on her neck. He gives it to her. And she she wears this chain, and she's out kind of in the forest, kind of, looking for this, holding on to this chain and whatever. And then that's when he that's the scene, that one of the scenes I kind of like, that he runs to the forest, unarmed, and he goes way, way, way into either Hartford Forest, I can't remember, or if I made it Sherwood Forest, I can't remember, but he goes into the forest unarmed, without any men, looking for her. And he says, look, I want her to be at a certain village, and I want her to be, ready to go with me. I'm going to take her with me. He wants to take her with him. And he's kind of naive because he's always had everything he wants. And that's another characteristic I kind of like in some of my male characters, is a naivete that well, this is what I want. And so who wouldn't want to come and live with me in the castle? I can give her anything she wants. And he doesn't take into consideration that she has patients that she cares for, and villagers that she cares for, and and her life at the abbey. And he doesn't understand. He's just like, what? And she ends up going with him. And this one scene I really like is that which is kind of inspired by my cat. That's a big black cat. Is that he keeps calling her a witch, and these kind of things, just because she's a herbalist and she knows things. And she wants to bring her cat with her, and she starts to cry because she wants to bring her cat. And he says, "Oh, you're not bringing that familiar demon with you, to my in the castle, witch, and the and another character, he turns to another character and says, what's the matter with her? Because she's standing there crying, and the other character is going, well, like, she's crying, my lord. And he's like, I can see that fool, make her stop, and he's like, cut it out, don't do stop, and of course she's still crying, and she tells him she wants to bring the cat, and then he orders a basket brought, and she gets to bring her cat. And I think he realizes at that point the power of her tears, and the power she has over him. It kind of frightens him. And that's also evident in another story, the one I told you, the General and Magda. This is a story in my head. I haven't put it down yet. That he goes to his brother-in-law. The General goes to his brother-in-law, and he says, I don't, he's always talking about her. She's doing this, she's doing that, she's doing this, she's doing that. It's one scene that I really like, is that he she wears his perfume that really bothers him. And I mean, he likes it very much. And she wears it when they're in the corridors of power, and when they're trying, because she's an ambassador, of course, so she's there, trying to put her people's interests up, up front. And so he wants to tell her to stop wearing the perfume, the body oil, whatever it is. And so he tells his brother-in-law, who also happens to be a very, very high ranking official in his army, like his right hand man, basically his executive officer, to tell the ambassador not to wear that perfume. And the of course the executive officer is like, ah, no, I want no parts of that. If the perfume is bothering you, you tell her not to wear it. And he goes to her and says this, and she's very sweet about it. And, she's, oh, I'm sorry you don't like it. He goes, no, 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 I do like it. That's the problem. And also, as he begins to fall in love with her, he's in an ideal male situation. Ideal male situation. He has three like concubines, I guess you would call them. They're sterile and they're not allowed to speak. So you never get a headache and you never get any talking, and you don't have to worry about any babies. He's got paradise, at his fingertips. And but all he doesn't want that. All he wants this, he wants the ambassador. He wants the intelligent kind of, her own woman sort of, woman. And he goes to his brother-in-law, who's also his executive officer, who's married to his sister, and says, um, how do you know? What does it feel like? How do you know? And his brother-in-law is like, know what, my friend? And he's like, how does it feel? He don't even want to say it. He thinks he's falling in love with her. And the brother-in-law is hip to it. The brother-in-law is like, well, man, if you're asking, if you're wondering, it's a little bit too late. And he totally freaks out because he's never had these emotions. And that's something else I was talking about, the naivete. He's gotten he's has the perfect male setup. Three women, they can't talk and they're sterile. And he he but what does he want in the end? He wants the woman that talks back to him, and he wants the female that is her own woman and does things and goes off and and does these things. This is who he really wants. And he immediately he says, well, the general, he says, well, I'm going to send her away. Because that's part of the naivete that he has, is that he can just, okay, I'm falling in love with her, okay, I can just stop this by sending her away. I kind of like it. And also what I really kind of like about him is that he has six older sisters. And I find that my male characters, a lot of times, some of them do have older sisters, a lot of older sisters. And this particular character has six older sisters. And he was kind of like um, of course, after six girls, all of a sudden there's, this boy. And of course, he was doted on and, terrorized in turn. And he also has a little sister. And the younger sister he relates more to than he does the older ones, because the older ones are more or less, um, they're powerful. They have high positions in the government, as well as he does. But the younger um, sister is rather fragile. She's rather sickly. She's rather childlike, immature, kind of tender. And also the mother died in childbirth while she um, when she was born, and so he kind of feels a sort of a pity and a oneness with her. Um, as far as also too, as far as mothers are concerned, trying to think. My male characters usually have either their mother is gone. In Autumn, his mother is passed away. It's dead. Um, in in Raven Knight, his mother's alive, but they're estranged because she's in France. In trying to think. In Unspoken, the mother kind of plays a pivotal part in the story, because she's the one that discovers that the little boy is actually this man's son. The hero. In Unspoken, that it's actually his son. She goes down to nurse the girl who's had the child, and takes one look at, like I would know my grandson. Takes one look at the kid and knows, and the other, and Sir Guy was not even aware that he even had a child. So We're at 40, 1941, 42, 43. I'm going to let that one go. I'm going to play it back, write down. I decided to write down, play it back and write down what it was about so I won't forget. So I will talk to you later.